I know that everything your father left us is tainted. Mom, listen to me carefully. Kevin's lawyers have been in contact with the FBI. They're willing to let us renegotiate our situation. What kind of renegotiation? Kevin gets immunity in exchange for providing information about Daddy's criminal network. You get to keep $5 million and the house. The rest goes to the government. And you? The fraud charges disappear. We all walk away from this mess. It was brilliant. In a sociopathic way, Victoria had turned my moral victory into her strategic advantage. Victoria, you're asking me to help you profit from your crimes by exploiting Daddy's crimes. I'm asking you to be practical. The alternative is losing everything and potentially facing charges yourself. I looked around Robert's study, seeing it clearly for the first time. The expensive furniture, the rare books, the art collection, all of it purchased with blood money. I need time to think. Mom, the FBI meeting is tomorrow morning. Kevin's lawyer needs an answer tonight. After hanging up, I sat in the darkness of Robert's study, surrounded by the evidence of his double life. 43 years of marriage to a stranger. A daughter who'd inherited more than money from her father. She'd inherited his talent for deception. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated who I was when my back was against the wall. I picked up the phone and dialed Carol Chen. Carol, how quickly can you get me a meeting with the FBI? I have a story to tell them, and I think they're going to find it very interesting. FBI agent Sarah Martinez looked exactly like what Central Casting would order for a federal investigator. Serious, intelligent, and completely immune to charm. She sat across from me in Harrison's conference room, recording our conversation and taking notes with mechanical precision. Mrs. Sullivan, you understand that by coming forward voluntarily, you're potentially admitting to benefiting from criminal proceeds? I understand. But I'd rather tell you the truth than let my daughter and her husband manipulate this situation to their advantage. I laid out everything. Robert's hidden business, Victoria's fraud scheme, Kevin's forgeries, and the extortion attempt masquerading as a settlement offer. Your daughter believes she can trade information about your husband's crimes for immunity from her own charges? That's exactly what she believes, and she thinks I'll cooperate because I'm afraid of losing everything. Agent Martinez smiled for the first time. Are you afraid, Mrs. Sullivan? Agent Martinez, 2 weeks ago I was a grieving widow sleeping in a budget motel. Today I'm sitting here voluntarily confessing to federal agents about my dead husband's criminal enterprise. Fear is no longer my primary emotion. What is? Anger. Pure, crystallized anger at being manipulated by people who underestimated my intelligence for decades. Agent Martinez's smile widened. Mrs. Sullivan, would you be willing to wear a wire? 3 hours later, I was sitting in my living room with a recording device taped to my chest, waiting for Victoria and Kevin to arrive for what they thought was a surrender meeting. They knocked at exactly 8 p.m., both dressed like they were attending a business dinner. Kevin carried a briefcase that probably contained immunity agreements and settlement papers. Mom, you look better than you have in weeks, Victoria said, kissing my cheek like nothing had happened. I feel better. Clarity has that effect. Kevin opened his briefcase with the efficiency of someone who'd conducted similar negotiations before. Margaret, our lawyers have structured this very favorably for you. You retain the house, $5 million in clean assets, and complete immunity from any charges related to Robert's activities. Clean assets. That's an interesting phrase. Victoria shot Kevin a warning look. Mom, the important thing is that we're all protected. The past stays buried, and we all move forward. What about the $33 million Robert actually left me? Mom, that money is tainted. It can't be separated from Daddy's criminal activities. Taking $5 million is the best outcome possible. And you two? What do you get out of this arrangement? Kevin leaned forward, his confidence returning. We get to put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us. Victoria's charges disappear. My reputation remains intact, and our family can heal. Misunderstanding. He was still calling felony fraud a misunderstanding. Kevin, help me understand something. When exactly did you discover Robert's criminal activities? What do you mean? Did you know about the money laundering when you married Victoria? Or did you discover it recently when you were planning to steal my inheritance? Kevin and Victoria exchanged glances. Margaret, I don't think that's relevant to our current discussion. Actually, I think it's very relevant. Because if you knew about Robert's crimes and said nothing, that makes you an accessory after the fact. And if you only discovered them while committing your own crimes, that makes you remarkably unlucky. Victoria's composure was starting to crack. Mom, what are you getting at? I'm getting at the fact that you two have been planning this for months, possibly years. The forged will, the money laundering discovery, even Kevin's connections to document forgers, none of this was spontaneous. That's ridiculous. Is it? Agent Martinez finds it quite plausible. The color drained from both their faces. Agent Martinez? Kevin whispered. FBI. She's been very interested in my story about systematic elder abuse, fraud, and extortion, particularly the part where you tried to blackmail me with my dead husband's crimes. Kevin stood up abruptly, reaching for his briefcase. Margaret, this conversation is over. Actually, Kevin, I think it's just beginning. Agent Martinez and 2 other federal agents entered my living room as Victoria and Kevin sat frozen in place. The briefcase Kevin had been reaching for was confiscated immediately, along with both their phones. Victoria Sullivan Hayes and Kevin Hayes, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, and attempted extortion of a federal witness. Victoria turned to me with an expression of absolute betrayal. Mom, how could you do this to your own family? The same way you could forge legal documents and steal my inheritance, sweetheart, except my way is legal. As the agents handcuffed them, Kevin tried one last desperate play. Margaret, you don't understand what you've done. There are people connected to Robert's business who won't appreciate federal attention. You've put yourself in danger. Agent Martinez paused in reading them their rights. Mr. Hayes, are you threatening a federal witness? I'm warning her about the reality of her situation. The reality, Agent Martinez said, is that you just added witness intimidation to your charges. After they were removed, Agent Martinez sat back down across from me. Mrs. Sullivan, Kevin's warning might not be entirely empty. Your husband was connected to some dangerous people. How dangerous? The Torino crime family, primarily. They've been using legitimate businesses to launder money for decades. Your husband's consulting firm was one of their most successful operations. The name meant nothing to me, but the agent's expression told me everything I needed to know. Are you saying I'm in actual physical danger? Potentially, but there's something else you should know about your husband's operation. Something that changes everything. Agent Martinez pulled out a thick file folder, the kind that suggested months of investigation. Mrs. Sullivan, your husband wasn't just laundering money for the Torino family. He was an FBI informant. For 12 years, he was providing information about their operations while appearing to facilitate their money laundering. The world tilted sideways. Robert was working for the FBI? Deep cover. Long-term investigation. The operation was so sensitive that even local FBI offices weren't informed. Your husband was helping us build cases against multiple crime families. But the money was real. The FBI allowed him to keep a percentage of the laundered funds as payment for his cooperation and to maintain his cover. Everything he left you was earned through legitimate federal cooperation. I stared at her, trying to process this revelation. So the $33 million is legally yours. Your husband died before the investigation concluded, but his cooperation over 12 years directly led to 47 arrests and the seizure of over $200 million in criminal assets. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because the investigation was ongoing. And because we weren't certain about your involvement or knowledge. Your daughter and son-in-law's fraud scheme actually helped us confirm your innocence. Victoria and Kevin didn't know any of this. They suspected criminal activity, but they had no idea about the federal cooperation. They were planning to blackmail you with information that would have actually exonerated your husband. The irony was so perfect, it was almost poetic. Victoria had tried to steal my inheritance twice, once through fraud and once through blackmail based on incomplete information. Agent Martinez, what happens now? Now? You get your money back, your daughter and son-in-law face federal charges, and you get to decide what kind of life you want to build with your legitimate inheritance. And the danger Kevin mentioned? The Torino family will be too busy dealing with their own legal problems to worry about you. We're executing search warrants across 3 states tomorrow morning. I looked around my living room, seeing it again as the site of my resurrection rather than my humiliation. Agent Martinez, can I ask you something? Of course. In your professional opinion, Am I a terrible person for feeling satisfaction about Victoria's arrest? Agent Martinez smiled. Mrs. Sullivan, in my professional opinion, you're a woman who refused to be victimized. That's not terrible. That's inspiring. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my renovated house, making coffee for two. The morning sun streamed through new windows that actually opened properly, illuminating countertops I'd chosen myself for the first time in 43 years. Good morning, Margaret. Dr. Sarah Chen, Carol's sister and my new financial advisor, appeared in the doorway, carrying a thick folder of investment reports. Good morning, Sarah. Ready for our quarterly review? The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media interviews, and personal transformation. Victoria and Kevin were each serving 18-month federal sentences. The news coverage of their crimes had made me something of a celebrity in senior advocacy circles. Your portfolio is performing excellently, Sarah said, settling at my new breakfast table. The charitable foundation is fully operational, and the scholarship fund has already selected its first recipients. The Margaret Sullivan Foundation for Elder Protection had become my primary focus. Using $15 million of my inheritance, we were funding legal aid for seniors facing family financial abuse and supporting legislative changes to strengthen elder protection laws. Any word on the documentary? Netflix confirmed the production deal. They want to start filming next month. My story had captured media attention far beyond the initial news coverage. The Mother's Revenge, an American crime story, was being developed as a limited series, with the proceeds going to elder advocacy organizations. And Victoria? Sarah's expression grew careful. She's written again. Her lawyer says she wants to apologize and ask for forgiveness. Victoria had written me 17 letters from federal prison. I'd read the first few, which ranged from self-justifying to desperate, before deciding to stop opening them. Some relationships, once broken, can't be repaired with words. Sarah, has my stance on that changed? Not according to our previous conversations, but people do evolve, Margaret. Even people who've made terrible choices. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, grieving, dependent, willing to accept whatever scraps of dignity my family offered me. That woman might have felt obligated to forgive Victoria, to rebuild a relationship based on guilt and tradition. But that woman was gone. Sarah, schedule a meeting with Victoria's lawyer, not to reconcile, but to make something clear. What kind of thing? I want Victoria to understand that her actions had consequences beyond legal punishment. I want her to know that she destroyed our relationship permanently, and that her children will grow up knowing why their mother went to prison. That seems harsh. Good. It's supposed to be harsh. Victoria made adult choices that hurt people she was supposed to love. She doesn't get to escape the emotional consequences just because she's written some prison letters. Sarah made notes in her leather portfolio. And the grandchildren? Victoria's requested supervised visits with them. My relationship with Victoria's children will be based on their choices when they're adults, not their mother's rehabilitation efforts. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a delivery truck with a large package. Must be the new furniture for the studio, I told Sarah. The art studio had been my favorite renovation project. Robert's former den was now a bright, airy space where I was rediscovering my love of painting, something I'd abandoned when I got married and assumed the role of supporting wife and mother. Margaret, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever regret how this all played out? The prison sentences, the media attention, the permanent family estrangement? I considered the question while signing for my delivery. 6 months ago, I'd been invisible, a widow with no money, no home, and no prospects. Today, I was a millionaire philanthropist with a foundation, a documentary deal, and a purpose that extended far beyond my own survival. Sarah, my daughter, tried to steal everything I owned and leave me homeless. My son-in-law created forged documents and threatened me with blackmail. They showed me exactly who they were when they thought I was powerless to stop them. But they're still family. No, they're still DNA. Family are the people who protect you when you're vulnerable, not the people who exploit your vulnerability for profit. Sarah closed her portfolio, satisfied with my response. Besides, I added, look what I became when I stopped allowing them to define my worth. After Sarah left, I walked through my house, really my house now, decorated according to my taste, organized around my priorities. In the art studio, I uncovered my latest painting, a self-portrait of a woman standing in bright sunlight, her face turned toward the future. The woman in the painting looked nothing like the grieving widow who'd packed her life into 2 suitcases 6 months ago. This woman looked powerful, independent, unafraid. She looked like someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming everything your enemies never thought you could be. Outside, the sun was setting behind trees I'd planted myself in soil that belonged to me, on property I'd defended through intelligence and courage, rather than inherited through marriage or birth. Tomorrow, I'd continue building the life I'd chosen, rather than the life others had planned for me. And if Victoria wanted to rebuild a relationship with this woman, she'd better bring a lot more than prison letters and hollow apologies. She'd better bring a complete transformation, one that matched my own. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.